Attention, please. I'd like to call this meeting, the Stratford Inland and Wetlands Watercourses Commission to order at 7 p.m. First order of business, approval of minutes from the last month's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Kripke, second by Mr. Waite. All in favor? Aye. Okay, next order, old business, 2023-12, 600 Silver Lane. Is the applicant here to present?
Good evening, everybody. I'm attorney Stephen Bellis. I represent the applicant. I'll just bring you up to speed on this. I think you remember seeing me a few times on this. Initially, we had a settlement with the town of Stratford. The mayor approved it. It was for a condominium project on Silver Lane. We came before your commission. I'm not good with dates, but it was maybe a year ago. And you approved the project, saying that there was no adverse impact on the wetlands. What we had proposed was only activity in the upland review. So this is a property that has no wetlands on it, but there is some wetlands on an adjoining property. So that was done. We then went to zoning, got an approval there. They had us change the plans slightly. They removed one house. They added more little units in the church. And we then went, so that zoning approved it. Long story short, we started doing some work on the remodeling of the church, and then this commission issued a cease and desist order. So we immediately came before your commission for a hearing. This is maybe me now, I'm speeding up, maybe a couple months ago. The applicant met with Kelly out in the field. They took a look at the silt fence, came up with a plan. That was done. They agreed on a soil and erosion control bond. That was, even though that's a zoning, under the state statute, zoning supposed to do that, we agreed to do it, and we posted it with Kelly. So that's been done. We then came before you and said, listen, this is what we're doing. We're doing remodeling on the church. The church is 217 feet away from the wetlands. So there was no activity being done in the upland review area, and obviously, since there's no wetlands on the property, nothing in the wetlands. But I just want to make clear that nothing was done in the upland review. There was no clearing of trees. There was, no construction, starting of those houses, anything like that. The work that was being done was on the church. Kelly pointed out that the plans that you approved look different than what was approved by zoning, and she was correct. They were slightly different. So we submitted the new plans. Jason Edwards is here. There was also a concern that it might have some slightly different calculations for the drainage. Normally in Stratford, the drainage goes to the zoning commission, and that report did go to him, and the engineer usually reviews it, and the two engineers talk. So that has happened. So then we came to you again, and we submitted the latest plans, the comments that Kelly had, and the comments to the engineer regarding drainage. So I'm here to ask you to please terminate the cease and desist order. As I said, the only work is being done was on the church, and that was 217 feet away, not in the upland review area. I just want to tell everyone we followed state statutes when we did this project, and there's an inconsistency, let's call it, between your regulations and state statutes. And that may have caused a little bit of a mift between the applicant and this commission. So I looked up the regulations, and it says if there's a conflict between your regulations and state law applies. So we've always followed state law. I think at the end of the day, and this has nothing to do with this application, I will file a petition and ask to amend the regulations, your wetlands regulations, so they conform with state statute, so we don't have these arguments or inconsistencies or conflicts in the future. And if you adopt the changes, fine. If you don't, you don't. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I just want you all to know that we did follow state statute, and state statute says you don't, wetlands can't ask you to post a performance bond. So we didn't do that. In fact, state statute says that zoning is supposed to ask you for a soil and erosion control bond. So really shouldn't have to give you one, but you know what? I'm not here to fight with this commission. We came here to settle this case, to move forward, so we posted the bond. Your commission said, Steve, why don't you just modify the permit that we gave you, and we'll all move on. So that's what I did. I filed a petition to modify the permit, get rid of those few things, and hopefully I won't have to come back and see you anymore on this application. And I have Jason Edwards here. He's the engineer if you have any questions. Nick Owen is here. Randy's here. I'm here because you asked me to do something to modify the permit. I did. I made that application. I've come before you, and we've done everything you've asked of us, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm asking you to terminate the cease and desist, and that will allow, and also allow Kelly to sign off what we call on the portal, to get your building permit. We've already got the zoning on the portal, but we don't have the wetlands. So, and then the engineer does his drainage thing. We have to get his approval, and then you have to get the building department's approval. So there's a process, and we're kind of waiting for your commission to say, okay, go ahead. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Attorney Bellis. This time, because there seems to be a little confusion between the regs,
Yeah.
I want to ask our attorney, the state or the town, who has who trumps who?
You need to follow your local regulations. I don't think there's an inconsistency between the local regulations and the state statutes. What the regulation that Attorney Bellis is referring to just basically says, if there is a conflict between the state statutes and the regulations, the state statutes would control, but that's just a normal catch-all that you would have in any set of regulations. So the regulations that we have, they're model regulations from the state. They apply to this project, and so to suggest that we are not complying with state statute is incorrect.
I want to be clear, because... Okay, so at this point, Kelly, would you like to say anything now at this time?
I provided my comments, and I did receive some responses later on, I think it was Tuesday afternoon. I was out of the office in a meeting. I have not had a chance to review them yet, but we do want, at our last meeting, I think that we all agreed that we wanted John Casey's approval before we felt comfortable with the revised drainage. And John did review that and we provided that to the permit holder, and we haven't been able to give what your response is back to John to make sure that he is satisfied with that yet.
All right. Does anyone else from the applicant want to speak at this time? Mr. Owens, you want to speak?
I do. Madam Secretary, Mr. Chairman, Superintendent Kelly, members of the Wetlands Commission, Nicholas Owen, 972 East Broadway, Stratford, where I conduct a development business, and I've been an integral part of this petition from day one. In more instances than not, when Engineer Casey makes his remarks or comments, there are generally changes, and there's really no difference in this one. However, in past instances, and I'm not saying all, but in most instances, what happens if whether it's the Wetlands Commission, the Zoning Commission, the Planning Commission, like the overall plan, like the presentation, agree with most of the nuances in that petition, they will make a motion to approve subject to all the terms and conditions from each and every department, which we have to do anyway. And if there are changes, I'm here to testify to you guys that there have been many projects that we have come in with, developed and built, where during the project and prior to actually starting any engineering work, Mr. Casey has come up with a number of different other scenarios, and we have to comply with them, or we will not get a permit from engineering. If you approve it, subject to, and we don't follow through with the engineering department's comments or recommendations, and I don't see anything in those comments or recommendations that are a deal killer to us, then I think, Mr. Chairman, it would, I would urge you to, your good commission, to approve this, subject to all the terms and conditions of not only the wetlands permit, but also of each and every department and any modification that may come down the pike that is reasonable. Now, most departments in this town are reasonable. I've never had a real issue with any of them. So I don't see why we need to hold this up any further. We're wasting time. It's costing us money. Yes, I will agree with Kelly and other members of the commission. There have been initial problems with this commission, and quite frankly, I have met her out on that Silver Lane property. She can correct me if I'm incorrect, either 2 or 3 times, once or twice by myself, another with another member of my family, who actually went out, met with Kelly, and did everything that she asked for in order to get back here so we wouldn't have a major problem. So I urge you to approve this commission, subject to all of those comments and any further comments that are reasonable that come down the pike, especially the engineering comments. We complied with, to the extent that we knew what Mr. Casey wanted, we went back and forth with his good offices 2 or 3 times. We have submitted additional plans. Unfortunately, Kelly was out. Unfortunately, like every other employee in this town, are buried with work, so nobody can get back to anyone right away. But the additional items that he is asking for, and our engineer can testify to that, are not major items, and we can certainly stipulate to whatever the engineering department needs.
Well, at this time, does anyone have any questions of Mr. Owens or Attorney Bellis?
Thank you.
Would you like to say more? Do you like to make any comments?
While I do generally agree with what you stated, my only concern is that I am this commission hasn't seen the revised plans, and if there is anything that has changed or may change the location of, say, an infiltration unit, I don't want you guys to have to come back for a permit modification. I mean, you're welcome to come back for a permit modification, but I'm just cautious that to issue a permit contingent on something we haven't had a chance to look at, perhaps there may be another modification, and I don't know if it makes sense at this time.
Well, leave it up to the commission. You guys feel you have enough to vote on this tonight, or do you want to table it?
That were in the package that I think we should talk about.
So we've heard from 600 for many times now, and again, is there a way that we can move this forward with the contingency that that it meets the engineering, that Kelly, that it meets all the things that you need? Again, a lot of what you noted was that the plans they gave you were not sized to be able to even evaluate them correctly. But if we trusting your judgment, can we approve it contingent on you getting what you need, and so that that doesn't further delay and require time of the commission going forward?
I think if that's something the commission's comfortable with, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know, Pat, if that poses any issues on the legal side.
If you're giving an approval that's subject to changes, then you really don't have a document that matches with the permit. So, this does not seem like a minor thing to me. And you couldn't condition it on another commission's approval, and so I don't know what's going to happen when the engineer looks at the plans and decides there needs to be changes, whether that has to go back to zoning. So, you know, the idea that you would just condition it on any approval that might come down from any other commissioner or any staff member, I think you're taking a chance. And it's not really appropriate to do it that way. You should have plans that are attached to the permit that are, you know, that reflect what they're going to do.
Mr. Chairman, we're still in the public hearing, yes? We're still at the public hearing on this
This is not a
petition.
public hearing, Mr. Owens.
I'm sorry?
This is not a public hearing.
No, we're still at this hearing, in other words, still open
Yes,
for
yeah,
comment.
oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I would like to have our engineer, Jason
Sure.
Edwards, tell you what changes were made based on the recommendations of the town engineer. Now, town engineer is not a commission, and if I misspoke before to say that we're going to come in with further modifications, I don't think I said that, but I may have, but that's not what my intention was or is. My intention is that we will conform with your permit and any other issues that may come up with the town departments where they want something changed, added, or deleted. I don't think that would be the purview of this commission. That would be the purview of those individual offices. Engineering, health department. You're not worried about sewers if the health department says they're right. You're not worried about engineering if they say, police, the fire. I mean, all of those are made part of this petition. This petition, when it's initially submitted, is submitted to all of those departments for comments. The toughest department, or the one that generally has the most comments, is the engineering departments. And I think Mr. Edwards can tell you what the final comments and what the answers were, and I believe that they were minor. So I'd like you to listen to Mr. Edwards right now.
Good evening. Jason Edwards, J. Edwards Associates, Engineers Surveyors, 227 Stepney Road in Easton. Yeah, in my opinion, these changes were relatively minor and technical. There was a lot to do with just the calculations and updating them to the most recent footprint of the impervious area, which is actually less than what was approved here back in last year. If you want, I can just run through each comment here and just explain to you what we did. The first one is related to language that was in the drainage report that was left over from a previous revision of the drainage report that spoke of a lot split. At one point, the plan was to actually split this lot out via subdivision. That is not happening. This is just it's a condo. It's all one development, so that's not a separate parcel. These are all going to be under common ownership as a condominium. So I clarified that. Again, this is a note in the drainage report regarding the number of bedrooms in the proposed church. This is, I don't see how that's really related to wetlands. It's all the way up here. The wetlands are back here. The review limit is down here behind all the homes. So any work related to the church is 200 feet away from that wetlands. And it does not impact our drainage calculations at all regarding the number of bedrooms. You wanted drainage area maps to better understand how we were designing the drainage, so we provided that on the last couple of pages of the drawing set here. There's something called water quality volume, which is the initial 1 inch or 1.1 inches of rainfall. Now you have to capture that and infiltrate it into the ground per state statutes. He wanted us to provide further clarification on those calculations, which we did. That did not change any of our design. In particular, this drainage system down here remained as is. He requested that we add hydrodynamic separators to the project, which we did. What those are is a mechanical particle separator unit that actually provides better treatment to the stormwater, so we've added those in. At this detention system here and ahead of the maintenance detention system here. That's an improvement to the water quality and improvement to the wetlands protection. Again, this is a very technical comment regarding the elevation of a pipe in the retention system. We adjusted that to accommodate what he asked for. He wanted us to add sumps, which is an area below the pipe in the yard drains up here in the parking lot, which we did. Again, nothing related to the wetlands. This drainage outlet here in the approved plan, it sat over here on this side, and there is a driveway here, the existing driveway that comes into the church comes through here. We're removing that driveway as part of this plan, which was part of the previous plan, but he thought that the outlet of this drainage should be moved down here farther so it went more directly into the wetlands. So we did that, and we also changed the outlet to a level spreader versus a riprap pad that was there previously. That, in my opinion, provides better protection and better flow control on the outlet. Soil and erosion control plan, he asked that we add one of those for phase 1. So there is a plan under sheet 2.1A, which includes erosion controls for just this phase 1, which is the church. Again, that work is all up in front of the property. He was concerned that there's a footing drain, foundation drain that comes out, subsurface groundwater drain comes out of this building. We originally had it routed down to here. He was concerned that there wasn't going to be enough room to adequately install that with the buildings going in here as well. So we relocated that to come out to the catch basin in the street here. So we'll have to finalize that with him, but that should have no bearing on the wetlands. He was concerned that we didn't clearly delineate curb lines on the back of this parking lot, so we've added those labels on the curbing. The sewer connection, there's sewer in both Silver Lane and Cannon Drive back here. The church and this existing building currently have a sewer lateral that cuts straight across the property and goes out to Cannon Lane. We had originally proposed to reroute that up and around this building and then back and tie into the same location. He had some concerns about, well, what he wanted to do was install a whole main up here with manholes and larger pipes. In our opinion, that wasn't really necessary because we could go out to the front to go out to Silver Lane instead. So we relocated those sewer laterals to come out to Silver Lane. And the final comment was in relation to the impervious area calculations required by the state stormwater program. We provided those. So that was really all of it. So there isn't any real significant changes from what we had shown. In particular, in the area of the upland review area, which is back here. The previous plan actually had homes within that upland review area, and we've now pulled them all out, so you have no new homes in the upland review area. The only work that's in the upland review area is the detention system, which is subsurface, and won't have any need to be back there once it's installed, other than to do maintenance. So in my opinion, it's less impactful than what was approved here previously. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Edwards?
Yes, I have
Go ahead,
a
Mr.
question
Waite.
for the committee here. When did Mr. Casey receive the paperwork to review?
The first round?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think Randy dropped it off. Not this response. After we met here last month, it was.
Whatever
about-
paperwork we
it was
need
like a
just to
week
get
and a-
this going.
It's been over, I'm sorry, Mr. Commissioner. I can answer that question. It's been over a month ago. And the reason why I know that, I initially brought the plans to him originally and went over them in his office myself, not being an engineer myself, and I said, look, this is important that you review it. He said to me, I'll do the best I can, but I'm jammed, we're in budget, I'm not in all the time, I'm at meetings, and I can understand that. But that's not to suggest that he's not doing his job.
It wasn't over a month ago, because it was, over a month ago would have been before the March meeting. It was after the March meeting.
I'm sorry, I apologize. It could have been
It was
three-
like a week after the March
All right,
meeting.
so it could have been like 3 weeks. I apologize for that misspeak. He did, in fact, get back to us. He had a number of comments. It took us a while to turn around and get those questions answered, which we did. I think this is our third round of questions and answers. As I'm sitting there listening to you guys and listening to him, it just dawns on me. I think that maybe we are all complicating it, and I'll tell you why I think that. To bring it down to the simplest form, and my answers are going to be no disrespect to anybody, but I was thinking about this. If we got approval from the fire department, let me start with that, and they said, Nick, we want you to put a fire hydrant at the intersection of Silver Lane and your new street. and we agree to it. It becomes part of the record. It becomes part of the approval, not your approval. It becomes, if we go to the health department, and the health department originally agrees on where they want us to locate the dumpster or dumpsters, or agree on one initially and then decide later on we want you to do two. We don't have to go back to zoning and say they now want two dumpsters, we got to amend our zoning approval. That becomes part of the overall project. The same for the police department. If they say, we want you to put one stop sign halfway up your new road and one on the corner at the intersection of Silver Lane and your new road, and then say, oh, by the way, we took another look at it, we don't want you to do that, we want you to put one stop sign here, and we want you to put no left turn or no right turn on the other corner. We don't have to go back to the zoning board and say, now we have to file an application, pay another fee, amend the petition. The same would be with the engineering department or any other department in town that puts their fingerprints on once that petition is filed. Because when that petition is initially filed, you will all agree that we do 8 or 10 copies, hard copies, a thumb drive. Every department gets one. You guys get a package every month. I assume, and I could be wrong, I don't know how the conservation department works, whether you get a thumb drive, but I know you get a set of copies. So it's those approvals could be in there from the different departments, or they could be amended, or there could be no comment at all. Now, in some instances, I have seen over the years, more often than not with the fire department, there'll be no comment. So it's, one of the commissioners said, well, how come we didn't get a comment from the fire department? Well, they didn't see an issue with it. Well, you're going to have to go back and get a comment. You go back and get a comment, and they would say, no comment. The same has happened with the police department. The engineering issues, and I call them, they're not really issues, the engineering questions are going to be an ongoing because there's certain inspections that are done during the life of the construction of the project. For example, we have to pull a sewer permit. We're going to have to go to the engineering department, pull a sewer permit, give them the layout of the sewer. They may turn around and Casey or company down there say, you know what, we see that you have this manhole or catch basin here or drainage pipe here. We want you to move it. Doesn't mean we have to go back and get reapproval from anybody. We just have to do it. Now, the bottom line is, and then I'll sit down and shut up. If we don't get it, we are not going to get a sign off. If we don't get a sign off, when we're done, we don't get a C of O. We have to be as dumb as a rock not to follow whatever the terms and conditions and recommendations are. And that's why I implore you, approve it, subject to the terms and conditions of the initial permit, as you should, as you always do. And if there are any additional comments required by any of the departments, we will follow them. We have to follow them. We don't have a choice. And I think I can't break it down any simpler than that. That's how the system works here. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to sort of ask for the record, I believe plans were filed like yesterday, and I don't think I don't think that the engineers had any opportunity to see them, nor have any members of the commission. So I know that there were plans filed last month, between the last meeting and this meeting, but at this point, normally what happens is you collect all this information first, and then you put it all on the permit. So I just want to make sure that we're all talking about the same plan, because otherwise, you issue a permit, what does that permit mean if it has all these conditions on it? And if the conditions require a whole bunch of other departments and commissions to weigh in, it makes it very difficult to know when does that process end?
It may, Counselor, it may not end. If Mr. Casey has looked at these plans several times, as Jason has indicated, they were very minor in nature. They were corrected. If there's further corrections, obviously he will do them. We are down to the final 0.1% of what additional comments will come in. This is not unusual. What I could never understand is why the Wetlands Commission has jurisdiction over what the engineering department has. It's two separate issues. You have nothing to do with sanitary sewers, nothing. You have to do with wetlands and upland review areas, not sanitary sewers. You have an interest in drainage, which is all part of the permit. We're getting deep into the weeds that we don't need to get into.
I will add that we should be looking at sanitary sewer. We don't want you piping your sanitary waste into the wetland, for example.
There you
So
go.
we cannot just avoid reviewing every detail. But the reason that you have to come back is because the Inland Wetlands Commission is regulating activities occurring on the actual land surface. So if you go to zoning and they say, we want more parking, pave more parking, that may impact how much land cover you're now adding to the project. That may impact your stormwater drainage, that may impact your runoff into the wetland, et cetera. So we do have to look at all these things,
You're
unfortunately.
correct. But those are issues that we aren't even addressing because we don't have to address them, because we are not changing anything any further. This is the layout. These are minor nits and gnats that we are working out. And I implore you, approve it with those stipulations. There's no reason to keep going every month. Thank you for your time.
If this was approved tonight, what repercussions could happen if they don't follow the stipulations?
Well, just as an example, Mr. Owen just told you that Mr. Casey might suggest that a manhole or some other drainage be moved. Well, is it moved into a place that's a wetland or an upland review area that you have jurisdiction over? I mean, as I said, I don't know where it ends if the permit doesn't include all the pieces that it's supposed to include.
What are we waiting for? Comments from engineering? Is that what we're basically waiting for?
I don't think so. I'm here because you issued a cease and desist order and requested a hearing, and that's why I'm here. And we're not doing anything. There's no activity for any of these houses, and the only work that was done is remodeling of the church, which is 200 feet away. It's not in the upland review area, so there's no impact on that at all. I just want a termination of the cease and desist order. That's why I'm here. You issued a cease and desist saying you can't continue remodeling that church. It's not in the upland review area. The upland review is 200 feet away. So we're being polite, coming back because we work in this town, these people, but there's no reason to wait for engineering comments on a cease and desist order. None at all. I don't understand the rationale for waiting for additional, comments from Mr. Casey.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry. If this commission, were to lift the cease and desist order, I'm just not sure how the building permit can be approved if there's still a pending modification. How would we compare
So
construction documents to construction
That's what I think
documents?
Nick was trying to explain. If you lift the cease and desist order, you still have to go through all the checklists on the portal, and one of them is the engineer. And if he doesn't sign off on it, you don't get a building permit.
No, I mean, I don't know how I could sign off on it because you're attempting to obtain a permit modification, and right now, your proposed plan doesn't match your original permit. So if we were to lift the cease and desist, that's still your original permit because this modification hasn't been issued yet. So I still cannot authorize that building permit.
Yeah, but you can lift the cease and desist, and then once you've reviewed it and find that there's nothing that changes anything in the upland review area, you can sign off.
After you have your modification.
Yeah.
Right, after you get your permit modification.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you could lift the cease and desist order. This commission cannot. I don't think Kelly can. Yeah.
But that doesn't give him the modification. So lifting the cease and desist order, okay, we stopped work on the church, doesn't mean that he gets this modification. And it's a modification that hasn't been reviewed by the town engineer. I mean, I realize this is sort of circuitous, but there's new plans, the town engineer is not seen. When you issue a permit here, you should be able to say, all the bodies that we asked to comment have commented, we've reviewed their comments, and we've issued a permit. And that permit is just like the permit that he already has. If he wants to move forward on the permit that he has already, that would be a different thing, but he wants to modify that permit.
We have to modify it because you're asking for, this commission is asking for something in the permit that's illegal. You're asking for a performance bond.
You agreed to that and did not appeal that decision.
I don't have to
So-
appeal it, it's against state law.
It is not against state law.
We could go to court, that's why I didn't want
All
to do
right,
that.
all right, here's what I want to do.
I just want to
It
lift
seems
the
like
cease.
we're like this close to being together on this.
Yeah,
We had a global agreement months ago.
yep.
This is getting ridiculous every month. I'm going to ask the commission again, do you want this?
Because we have a modification, and just as soon as we get the report from Mr. Casey on this, then
Well, my
Then that would give it to
modification
Gro-
was to eliminate the performance bond. That was the modification that I asked for. Talked about that.
I don't recall seeing that in the modification
Yeah.
documents.
Yeah. I don't want to, we don't want to do a performance bond.
Where did you ask for that? I have not seen that yet.
It was agreed to between the mayor and,
I have not seen any
Yeah.
documentation on that.
Neither have I.
yeah.
All right. We have
No,
a
that was
motion to
soil
table. We have a second. All in favor for tabling? Now, is it possible, again, maybe we could have a special meeting if we get these things that we need sooner than later?
We've given everything. I guess it's up to Mr. Casey to review
Well, that's
it.
that's,
Yeah,
right.
I can't really dictate what he does, you know.
Mr. Chairman, what I will do in the next, probably tomorrow, I will go see Casey myself. I'm here every day anyway. And I will implore him to get this over to Kelly Kerrigan.
Yes.
In due haste, and if we can have a special meeting so we can be done with this, and Attorney Bellis can do whatever
That's-
he has to do with whatever other
like,
issue may be, then we're fine.
We tried to have the special meeting, but because
Yeah,
of
there was a
budgets, we
room.
couldn't get in any, there was no place to meet, and we
Yeah,
didn't
I
have,
understand that.
you know, we want to get this, we want to get this done in the interest of everything.
I agree.
Great, thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Owens.
it. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, Jason.
What about all of these pages of feedback?
I'm assuming that they're in the packages that were provided on Tuesday. And all of you will have a chance to review that beforehand.
Before we go into the next petition, I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess. Okay? Well, yeah.
So just to be clear, Kelly, between the April 12th preparation of your notes, you're saying they might have submitted,
Yes, on
Okay.
on Tuesday, this literally yesterday.
okay.
Yeah, Tuesday, yep.
That's what you alluded to.
Yeah,
Ah,
yep.
okay.
Sorry, 7:40. Next order of business, Mountain Development Corp. versus Stratford Inland Wetlands Commission.
Chair, members of the commission, Manny's handing out a copy of, you might have it, but his response to comments, Kelly's comments, the most recent. Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield. Here on behalf of the, who was the original applicant, is now the appellant in this case. If you recall, this was a application we had made, and I know we've kind of gone over this in previous hearings this year, but this was an application we had gone to P&Z prior to coming to you for a regulation change to permit residential at this property, and we got that approved, and then subsequently came to you with an application for a 4-story multifamily apartment building that you can see right there. It actually had previously, that property had actually previously been approved years ago for a building of the exact same square footage as this one. And in addition to that, there's just a smaller community building. It's only basically a little over 2,500 square feet. Almost all of the building was beyond 100 feet from the wetlands. I know that your regulated area goes beyond that, but just to kind of reference you as to where the building is in relation to the wetlands, there was only a small corner of the building that was actually within 100 feet of the wetlands. There's obviously parking areas there that surrounded the building, and then another one that came down here along that way. So the site contains wetlands of slightly over 10 acres that you could see on the southeastern end of the site. There was no wetlands that were proposed to be disturbed, and there was nothing within 50 feet of the wetlands. No building within 50 feet of the wetlands. Almost all the building is not within 100 feet of the wetlands, as I said. There's an existing stormwater basin within 100 feet of the wetlands, which will be remained and maintained. And there was some drainage and grading that was proposed within the 100-foot from the wetlands, where we had some erosion and sediment controls. And obviously the application was subsequently denied. There were a number of issues that were raised, particularly by the public during the hearing. And so in an effort to try to settle this appeal, or we came back, and we're coming back with some revisions in hopes of addressing those comments and protecting the wetlands further, and the eastern box turtle, which I know was something that was brought up extensively during the public hearing. So just to run through the changes we were proposing to make from the original submission. The first one is to expand the conservation easement area in 2 locations. What you can see right here next to this offshoot parking area that's over here, we're proposing an additional conservation easement of 10,440 square feet. Over here on this other side, this is an additional conservation easement of 50,417 square feet. So it's an additional acre of land that would be conserved in perpetuity. And, it really has 2 benefits. There's the obvious benefit that more land area will be protected by a conservation easement in a significant area. It's over 60,000 square feet. And importantly, of that 60,000 square feet, over an acre is located within the upland review area. So it's not just 60,000 square feet anywhere. It's an acre of upland review. But in addition, what it ensures is that the current limits of disturbance remain, and that the development of the site won't go further, because this area is already conserved, and by adding this, it really boxes this in. This is going to be the limits of the disturbed area on this site, and, you know, again, this conservation easement would be in perpetuity. We submitted details and site plans that showed an enhanced sewer pump station. I know there was some concern about the capacity of that, and there was a species protection plan and operations and maintenance plan that was submitted. During the public hearing, there was some concern about what if there was a bad storm, and could the storage tank for a apartment building of this size, would it be able to handle if there was a storm that knocked out power for a few days? So what we did with this new proposal is we expanded the storage tank for the pump station from 4,000 to 32,000 gallons, which essentially, talking with Manny Silva, who's here with me tonight, it essentially means there's enough storage for that building for a week, just about a week, that it could. Now, that level of storage usually doesn't require a generator because it's long enough that it's unnecessary. It could store for long enough that it's not necessary. But to create some redundancy, what we're proposing is to also have the generator. So not only did we multiply the storage by 8 to get up to $32,000 gallons. But on top of that, we kept the generator. So we make sure that we have some redundancy here. And so even if it's the worst storm we've had, we're going to be protected and ensure that there's no damage to the wetlands. We also expanded from a duplex pump station to a fourplex pump station. If you have questions about that, Manny can explain what that change does. And then we also submitted, again, there was a lot of comments from the public regarding the eastern box turtle. Some people had claimed that they had observed the turtle, and what we had was, you might remember, George Logan was the original consultant on this when we came and we applied before you. He had made a comment during the course of the hearing, which I think some of the commission took exception to, that he had not explored the entire property and the entire wetlands. He just focused around the area where the development was. We subsequently retained Land Tech. The reports that you see are from Land Tech. They were retained for this submission. They did go and inspect the entire property, the entire area of the wetlands, around the wetlands. And they did do an investigation regarding the turtle. They found that the habitat requirements, they didn't observe any, they found that the habitat requirements for the eastern box turtle to be located in the southeastern portion of the site, so, you know, as far away from the site as possible, and they prepared a protection plan to ensure that the box turtle would be protected. It's a plan, I have to say, I've seen this plan now, similar plans to it on a number of applications. There's certainly more awareness of the eastern box turtle, and I know there's a lot of coordination with the state about how to protect them. The basics of it is that you put up the silt fence and you do sweeps to ensure when you're doing work that there isn't a box turtle, and if there is, then to relocate them where they're safe, and particularly around the time when they're going to hibernate, to ensure that they're not under the ground while you're doing construction. So there's a whole plan that Land Tech submitted about how to handle that. But one thing, Brian Carey, who prepared it, he let me know is that all the area where we are proposing to disturb, that is not habitat, and that very unlikely to find a box turtle in that area. Again, if there's any habitat, he didn't observe any, but if there's any, it's down here. It's not anywhere near where the site development is. There was also some concern about invasive species and having a plan for that. So Land Tech prepared and we submitted an invasive species control plan to remove invasive species. And in that plan, you also probably saw there was a plan that identified 4 separate restoration areas. There was one area, it was about 9,750 square feet, where the applicant proposed, or Land Tech proposed, removal of invasive shrubs within the wetland, followed by interplanting with wetland shrubs. There was a second area with 14,750 square feet, excuse me, where there was be further removal of invasive shrubs and vines. Land Tech identified what they saw in their observation as far as invasive shrubs and vines. This is within the upland buffer, and once that removal occurred, there would be interplanting with wildlife habitat enhancing shrubs. There was an area C, which was proposed to contain 17,250 square feet, where the applicant proposed interplanting, again, with wildlife habitat enhancing shrubs and trees. And an area D with 3,650 square feet, where the applicant's proposing seeding with a wildlife conservation mix and planting with clonal shrubs. So in total, the restoration area we were proposing would cover an acre of land, which we think is a significant addition from our original plan. So really, that was those were the revisions. Again, trying to, sorry, I'm on my third hearing this week, so I'm starting to lose the voice. Trying to address the comments related to the wetlands and some of the wildlife species that were expressed at the public hearing. And so, again, Manny's here. If you have any questions with regards to some of the engineering and his responses that he submitted, he could go through it if you wish, responding to Kelly's comments.
Yes, Mr. Haddad.
Just a quick clarification, perhaps, because you're referencing 32,000 gallons. There's a 9th tank that's going to hold a pump. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, Manny Silva from Rose Teasdale Company, civil engineer and registered in the state of Connecticut. So the 35 Brentwood Avenue, Fairfield.
Yeah, it's on SP4, you said? Right?
Yeah, SP2.
SP2?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me make sure.
I think it says SP4.
Correct.
Yeah, I saw it on 4.
So I like to be mobile. So on SP4, you can see that we have a gang, we call it a gang of tanks here. They're each 4,000 gallons each, and we have approximately, looks like 8 of them. And then what we have on, what you see right here next to it is actually the pump chamber, which is another 4,000 gallon tank, which will have the pumps inside of it. And the pumps will be 2 duplex pumps, so meaning there'll be 4 total, and they'll be on a rail. We have a pump, I know we have a pump expert here on the board. So those pumps will be, there'll be 4 of them, and they'll alternate. And then when it reaches an alarm level, meaning that it detects that the flow is higher than what that one pump is being able to accommodate, it'll start activating more pumps as it goes along. So you will never see all 4 activated, but the idea is to have them alternate exercise. And it'll actually, 3 pumps will have to fail before this thing will start to have an issue. But by then, there'll be a bunch of alarms anyway.
So what is accurate that you went from originally only 4,000 gallons of storage?
Right. We had one 4,000 gallon tank because we have a generator.
Okay.
If power goes out, the pumps will be powered by the generator.
I see.
So as a kind of a belt and suspenders type of thing, to have redundancy, we have a generator, plus we have the storage for if we didn't have a generator.
I see.
Right.
Okay, that makes more sense too.
Right.
Thank you.
Could you tell me how are the pumps maintained, or maybe, Dennis, maybe you could,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how they're maintained.
Well, that's the biggest thing.
Correct.
I mean, these things go down, you got 120 families up there,
Right.
and that is a concern. If there's an overflow or a break, it goes into the wetlands. Let's face it, it's gotta go somewhere, right?
Correct, correct.
You got a 3-inch discharge on this pump, I see?
Yep.
And what's it coming into the chamber? What size piping's coming into the chamber?
It comes into a gravity line that's out in the
Right.
Armory Road, which
We're
is,
coming from the building into the pumping chamber.
that will be, it will be a.
6-inch?
It's actually, 6 to 8 inch. I
6
can't
to
read
8
it.
inch
I
sewer
can't read
coming
off-
in with a 3-inch discharge.
Correct. And that's for due to the, we'll actually revise that depending on the pump performance.
Would they consider having the town put in a pumping station and have the town maintain it?
Would they consider that? I'm sure
Yeah.
they would love that, but I don't think the
I
town
don't
would
know.
accept that.
Have they
Yeah.
asked?
Yeah.
At the cost of the building, naturally.
No, I think this should be, something like this should be maintained by the condominium or the association of the building or the building owner.
Yeah, the problem is to maintain, once it's down, the town will come right out if the sewer's down.
Right.
I don't know how long it's gonna take for these people
So
to get
this,
out there.
something like this usually has a property manager that's
Yeah, I
gonna be
know,
responsible
yeah,
for that.
yeah.
And they'll have, you know how these alarm boxes work. We can
Yeah.
now put cellular notifications
Yeah,
on them.
yeah.
And it could call the property manager right away if there's actually an alarm on it. And again, if just one pump goes down or there's it'll alarm them, right? So we actually have 3 more
Yeah.
that'll be there to operate in the meantime.
Yeah, my main concern was if something catastrophic happened, and
Yeah, that's the
I'm not gonna
big-
say that.
that's the really only concern I have with
Right.
this.
So just to have the commission have some ease is that we've actually gone for enough to that we can have a long-term storage as if we didn't have the pumps working, if we didn't have power, if we didn't have a generator.
Let me ask you another question.
Yep.
Those tanks have to be changed, they must be steel tanks,
They're reinforced concrete.
reinforced concrete. All right, they decay too, septic systems decay.
Right.
Do they have scheduled to change them, like,
They're-
every so many 20 years or whatever?
Well, I've seen septic tanks go for 50 years, right? They've
Yeah,
been
I
in the ground
seen
for-
them,
yeah.
right, but I seen them
But you're right,
start,
they could be,
they start to decay.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
then they're subject to
they are
crack.
going to have to be changed out somewhere around between 30 to 50 years from
Yeah,
now.
because they're subject to cracks. You'll never know that.
Right.
You'll never know if that tank's cracked. You won't. It'll seep into the soil. I've seen it.
Right. But if the pumps are always operating,
Yes.
the fluid level in those tanks will be very low.
You're right. You're right.
Yep.
This is a big thing. You know, the wetlands are the wetlands. Once you destroy them, it's over.
Right.
So
They're watertight.
they're never going to be changed. You know that.
I don't know that.
And eventually,
Yeah.
I know what happens. I've been around this.
So
I've been a plumber
the
for
tanks
long.
themselves are there in case there's a failure of the system, of the pumps, of the generators.
Right.
Of power. There's a lot of Swiss cheese you have to go through before you get to that point that you're talking about.
Yes, I understand that.
Right,
Matter of fact,
so-
there was a house for sale. They dug the tank. They wanted to see. The tank was decayed. It was cracked, but it was going in the ground.
Right.
And this happens. It's not just one job I've seen. I've seen a few. But it does happen.
Right.
It's not like it can't happen.
No, I understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only concern I got. Like I said, once they're destroyed, the wetlands, they're destroyed forever. Once
Yeah,
that's-
no, I
once
don't think,
that-
say if there was a tank that was leaking would be a catastrophic event for the wetlands because, as you know, septic systems, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
And these are actually far enough from the wetlands that there's enough distance there that there would be a treatment through the soil, even
Yeah.
if there was a leak.
This is 120 families. This is a little different than a house. You know,
Right.
I know a house is bad enough, but there's 120 families flush in
Right,
there.
and I'm saying that as knowing how this is going to operate, there's
Yeah.
not going to be a high enough fluid level in those tanks.
Right.
to be concerned about them leaking into the.
I've seen them pumps go down.
Mhm.
And it may not happen, there might be 120 families, but no paraplegics living there. This woman had a paraplegic son, and she had a nurse come in. Well, every day the nurse take care of the boy and throw her rubber gloves in the sewer. And she had a pump up.
Yep,
Well, that thing clogged in the middle of the night,
right.
and the sewage was coming out. The alarms are going off. The town was there, you know, the whole,
Yeah.
the EPA was there, you know, they were
Right, no,
all
yeah.
there.
No, I've seen it with
And
Sacred Heart, yeah.
They come out with a septic tank truck, middle of the night, pumped it out. They call me. I didn't do anything. I didn't even put the pump in.
Yeah. So,
But
I mean, we
it
can.
happens, I'm
Yeah,
saying.
it does, and
It happens.
we have, maintenance logs and things like that. If you want, we can submit them to the town every
I
year.
think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so that the
If-
property
if-
manager has to have, maintenance logs and all the
log.
the water treatment facilities, so like we can add the
Yeah.
pumps to it. So.
Well, I mean, if the commission's willing to go for something like that, I mean, it's up to them.
Yes, Dr. Chess.
So would it be possible to mandate that after 40 years that the septic tanks are changed up, you know?
I mean, you could, but
I mean,
I
because
mean,
even if it's not, the title isn't high on there, right? It's relatively low and shallow, and I understand you've really built in a tremendous amount of redundancy here, right? You've gone from 4,000 to 32,000. You've really you've done a
36,000.
lot of work here to make this work and to protect the wetlands, but that bottom part can erode. To your point, it will erode.
It will
It's not gonna. It's not. It could.
Foundation.
So building in here where it's mandated that every 40 years you have to switch out the tanks would provide another level of
I would say that we could do that, but
Here's the problem with that.
yeah, it's the enforcement, right? It's
Here's the problem with that. What if they route out after 20 years?
Well, it can't.
They could say, we had an agreement to change them after 40 years. You got to be careful with that.
Yes, you do.
So, I mean, just to give kind of like I know there's a lot of anecdotal information going out here, but, I mean, I've inspected culverts and concrete reinforced pipes that have been around for over 100 years, and they're still there. But as you said, sometimes they don't last that long, depending on how they're maintained and what's
You'll
going
never know.
on.
Yes, you'll
Right.
never know.
You know, but
But you'll never know if it's leaking, that's the problem.
I think the issue is there's nothing I don't think we can do that could. Oh, you got it? Oh, I thought I was about to.
stop.
That could completely eliminate every scenario. What we can do, which is what I think Manny's done, is create redundancies as best we can, and then if we need to have a third party, and that being the town, check it. You know, we could submit we could submit reports and annual maintenance logs and things like that to the town.
Manny, I have a question. Similar to underground storage tanks that hold petroleum products, there's a lot of different systems that you can install where you have like an interstitial space with an alarm and all kinds of stuff to tell if the tank is leaking. Does that technology exist for these types of tanks?
for these type of tanks, in general, we don't have like a leak alarm.
Okay.
But we could, only because if a septic tank leaks, it's not like it's acting as kind of like a septic system. You know what I mean? It's not a catastrophic thing to the environment as if it were an oil tank or some kind of hazardous material tank or things. Those tanks actually have a double lined, and then you have an alarm once you start leaking into the second tank. It'll alarm you that it's leaking into the second tank. This is a thick-walled concrete tank that, like I said, I've seen some pretty old ones, and they've held up. Like that's not to guarantee that these would. But what we could do is, with the annual inspections of the actual system, we can camera the tanks to see if they're cracked or anything like that. Because they are going to be empty for the majority of it.
Yeah.
They are. So you're going to be able to inspect them.
I know, concrete stuff. The foundation's a road, and, there's nothing there but dirt on the outside of it, too. It's up to this commission.
But I think the commission could be confident in that any small leak that, if it were to happen, we actually have, I can't tell you what the distance is right off the top of my head, but I could probably try to figure it out. But the distance from here to the wetlands is well further. So like in the health department, when we do a septic system, you have to be 50 feet away from any water course or wetland, because that's to ensure that the water is disinfected and it's filtered through the actual soil medium before it gets to an open water or a wetland. In this case, we're well, I think we're almost, we got to be around 200 feet, right? I think that's your upland review line, so we're right there with it.
Is there substantial soil? Because I know there's a lot of depth to bedrock on this, it's really shallow to bedrock on some areas, so.
Right,
Is there
so
substantial soil in that area?
The average, I think, was, I wrote it in the response. I mean, it depends on where you are, but the average is, was 15 inches to rock, so we're
That's
gonna.
pretty shallow.
It's definitely gonna sit in a, it's gonna sit in a rock basin, right?
Mhm.
The fluid's not gonna go anywhere, it's gonna stay there, right? So.
Depending on the contours, yeah, of the bedrock.
So it's not gonna flow. It's gonna be like in a rock cradle with some stone around it, so. I mean, speaking as an engineer that deals with these things, I think we have a belt and suspenders system here. I don't think I'll be around when,
I probably won't either, but the wetlands should be. That's all
No,
I'm
and I
saying.
think it will be, and the, like I said, we can add on to, we can do a TV inspection of the tanks on the yearly inspection report.
I think something has to be done.
Right.
You got to come up with
Yeah.
some kind of a.
I think to
an
say that,
answer.
we'll have to change them out in 40 years, I don't know who's gonna remind them.
That's an expense on the people in these, I mean, I understand that, so they're
And the
not
expense
gonna.
isn't really that big, because like if you had to repave the parking lot, it's gonna be more than having to change out those tanks.
If you
So-
have to dig up you got to get excavators
Right,
in there, you
right.
got to redo the soil.
I'm just saying that whoever Kelly Kerrigan is 40 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe she'll be here.
Yeah, well,
she's
probably
pretty
won't.
fit.
It's the
She's
people
pretty
around
fit.
the area that are gonna,
So
be
the,
mad.
She's gonna have to remind us in 40 years to do that, right? So,
Yeah, well, somebody's got it, because I
Right.
know you're not gonna do it on your own.
So I think if we add I think it's not too cumbersome to say that we can add an inspection of the tanks every year.
The sewers are too high in the street for you,
What's that?
for
I'm sorry?
this project. The sewers are not in the street?
They're here on Armory Road.
Okay.
So actually, we have to pump up to Armory Road, and then it goes to a gravity line down Armory. So the force main is only from here to there. Then it's a gravity line from there on.
There's none on Holly Lane there? I mean, not Holly Lane, whatever.
Correct, 2-inch force main. So what it is that there's a grinder pump. It grinds all the solids up, makes it
Yeah.
into a soup, and then shoots it through a
Yeah,
2-inch
straw.
line. Hard to believe, but it works pretty well.
Yeah, you bring an 8-inch main, shoots it through a straw.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, and I can't tell you that, or I would. Except,
No, I think you have a valid concern, and I think we should inspect the tanks if that makes everyone more comfortable. We'll just add it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's better than saying like we're anticipating when they're going to fail. This way we
Well,
can
yeah.
just monitor to them.
they will fail
Yeah.
eventually. Everything
Yeah.
fails, right? Yeah, we know that. Yeah, right. Everything fails, right? I mean, I'm sure I'll fail.
I mean, what we're trying to do with what we're presenting tonight, do what we can. We're working with Land Tech to enhance the wetlands, protect the wildlife, put in wildlife enhancing shrubs. The building is 100 feet away, so it's really about, what Manny's talking about here is the use and what goes along with the use, having the protections in there to make sure that this wetland is safe. And so anything with regards to inspections, we are happy to agree to that, to make sure that our use doesn't at some point in the future cause a problem with the
Yes, I want to compliment you on the redundancy. It's much better than the previous plan, and it's very good. I'm going to ask to table this, though, because we're still waiting on comments from John Casey, our engineer,
Okay.
and should be fine with that, so I'm going to ask for a motion to table.
He's got another question.
Sorry, Larry.
I have a,
No worries.
Just seeing the topography.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask two side questions.
He's asking. Sorry.
go ahead.
Just really quickly. It doesn't matter which plot plan, but the topography from, I guess, the buildings, it's fairly steep. It's 20 feet of grade, 20 feet of rise over maybe 40 feet or 80 feet, maybe? Is that sound
No,
right?
it's like, so it goes from 150 to like 160, so it's
Well, I'm
15
looking at
feet.
the 140 mark, closer to the wetland limit line.
Right down here.
Oh, right. So the whole site itself is very steep currently.
Yeah.
It's like a rock outcrop right here in this area.
So is there like a fence? Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't want
No,
people
yeah,
and
so-
kids rolling down that hill, I'm
So we
assuming?
have,
Like, what-
we have, during construction, we actually have a double fence, it's double silt fence. But what we have here on the landscaping plan is we're gonna landscape that slope
Okay,
so that anybody here that's coming along this sidewalk behind the building
okay, this is a
is
good
got this like dense, ground cover.
Okay.
And then we'll have trees and shrubs in there, to stop, kind of to be a visual barrier,
Yeah.
a landscape barrier between them and that slope going downhill. Yeah, we didn't put any kind of fence or mechanical thing, we just landscaped that area.
That's probably fine.
Yep.
I mean, it's not that steep.
No,
is it?
no,
Right?
it's
Okay.
I think it's a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 slope, so
Because, on the plan, it looks a
it
little
looks,
more
because of the
dramatic.
scale,
Yeah,
it's a bigger scale drawing.
okay, that was it. Go ahead, sorry.
Because I have a question. This is more of a, I guess, town question. If, again, in theory, if we do have the mother of all disasters, does the town have a truck that could pump out the gallon that these pumps would hold?
The town does have a vac truck. I'm trying to think. I think it's for stormwater drains, though, so I don't know that it's for sanitary.
It is.
Yeah, we don't have a septic. I don't believe we do.
I might be able to answer that. What would happen most likely is I've seen it happen in other towns. They contract with an outside contractor to come right. They're on call. They're ready,
And so, like, if that does happen, who gets the bill? Is it on the town or is it on the condo association?
Very good question.
Whoever hires them.
It's the building. Yeah, it's the building. The building, the property manager would pay for that. Which then send the bill to either the building owner or the tenants, depending on how they do it, if it's a condominium or if it's a rental.
It'll go under a common charge.
Correct,
It
yeah.
is.
But,
Yeah, an
but again,
assessment,
would
right.
something like that be upfront to the potential tenants in the building? In other words, like when they
I
go
mean,
to,
so what happens in those situations is they either do that, they rectify that issue, or they have to evacuate the building and then go to a shelter. That's
okay,
what's
so then
happening.
again, I know we're inland wetlands, but just out of curiosity. So if everybody has to evacuate, who's responsible for that? Again, is it gonna be the condo association?
So, no. So what happens in those situations, what you're talking about is like some kind of natural disaster, right? So the town sets up shelters at the high school, at the library, at the public buildings, and then there's gonna be people that are out of power, they don't have sewer, they don't have water, and this would be the same thing, is if they couldn't sustain things like the sewer pump, or if the generator doesn't work, or they no longer can flush their toilets, they have to leave. They have to go to a shelter, right? Which is an emergency response shelter somewhere in town, or in, the state would have to set up something. It's probably the Armory right down the road, actually. So, yeah, that's the case for any single homeowner around here. Right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about like,
And I have another question on concrete, because you keep referring to concrete from 100 years ago, concrete from 100 years ago. Again, is there any way, is the concrete today made the same as concrete from 100 years ago? Because I've tried mixing concrete and didn't come out too hot.
Yeah, so nowadays, you know, reinforced concrete now is actually better than it was, say, 100 years ago.
So-
Only because we didn't, now the process is more standardized, where it was, reinforced concrete is concrete with steel rebar in it as a mesh. And now we actually use, like, I think it's 5,000 PSI concrete. Back in the day, it was like 3,000 PSI concrete, so it's a little stronger. It's 50% or 150% stronger now. And the concretes are not as porous as they used to be. You know, so like water infiltration into concrete used to be a problem, which then would freeze and crack it and stuff. And now concrete is less porous because it's made in almost like a factory, which is the precasters like Aero Concrete, United Concrete, Connecticut Precast. Those guys make those pipes. Back in the day, they used to be kind of formed out in the site and poured with the rebar and things, and then they would, you know, install it after that. Now it's more of a standardized, longer lasting. I mean, there's concrete bomb shelters built in the 40s that are still in New Haven today. They built a mall over it. You know, that's where the New Haven Mall is now. So those are still viable. People are in them. I mean, so.
What? No, that was my question. And again, would you be able to tell us again what kind of level or grade concrete you're going to be using?
Yeah, it's standard nowadays, just like steel. It used to be, steel used to be like 36 KSI, which is like 1,000 pounds per inch, and now it's like 50, because all the recycled steel is now 50 KSI, so everything's 50 KSI, and same thing with concrete. As certain things needed stronger concrete, so now the whole industry has just adopted the stronger concrete for everything. So right now the standard is 5,000 PSI concrete, you know, where it used to be like 3,200, you know.
I assume the builders are going to use best practices and best equipment and stuff.
Right, so
Yeah.
like things like the tanks, that's going to be a precaster that's doing it every day. Yeah. Correct, yeah. This is a pre-constructed thing, yeah. They're not made on site, right.
Well, again, on that, if you're going to plop it in by a crane, again, is somebody going to inspect it once it's in the ground to make sure there are no cracks?
Absolutely, yep. I'll be there, probably someone from the engineer department will be there for the town, so.
Two quick questions.
Go ahead, John.
One is, I noticed you had to notify Trumbull.
I'm sorry?
You had to notify Trumbull of the project?
Yeah, they have to, right. You have to
Okay,
send a
okay.
notice just like you do the neighbors to the town.
Any feedback? I mean, from,
Have you guys sent any feedback to any other towns?
what's that?
I just want to ask the question, has this board ever sent? No, I don't
Oh,
think.
okay, yeah.
Right.
And we probably answered this the last time, but because it's a 4-story unit, is there a height restriction in that area?
This would be compliant.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a zoning thing, yeah.
Joe?
Yes. I just have a big picture view of this. And so right now, there is a naturally functioning wetland out there. And the project is going to sit right on top of the natural watershed area that's going to radically alter the hydrology for the water that goes into the wetland. It's going to affect the quality of the water that goes in, the amount of the water, and the rate at which it goes in. To make matters worse, there is a steep slope. In some areas, in 100 feet, which is probably like from that wall to that wall, approximately 100 feet, consider the height of a telephone pole, and that angle will be, so we're talking about some steep slopes. So it's gonna, to me, this has a major impact on that wetland. And we're gonna take this natural wetland and we're gonna put it on artificial life support that's gonna depend on tanks, on pipes, on generators, on pumps, on filtration systems, all working properly so that this wetland will receive the water, and this wetland is the source of the Bruce Brook stream system that goes right across town and into Long Island Sound. So I think this is a very important wetland, and I think that a lot of things are going to be done to it. You know?
I can appreciate your comments, and I understand where you're, but I have to disagree because there are, just as you said, to take a larger picture, this is also Holly Lane with a existing office building, commercial parking garage. You got Big Y here with the shopping center behind it, and then you have a pretty dense subdivision surrounding this thing here. So, basically that fact is what created this wetland, right? Is all that runoff from those impervious surfaces is what really has created this wetland here. So what we have here currently is a retention pond here for the actual office building, the current one that's there today. So that's where the majority of that water is coming from into this. That's what's feeding this wetland right now. And then as far as the slopes, we're actually reducing the amount of slopes that there is there from the existing condition, because the existing condition is a very steep rock outcrop that's is taller than the site behind us here at Big Y. And we're actually making that, we're leveling that out so that the slope is flatter. There is a small 4-to-1 slope here between the building and the wetland where we filled in just to make our platform for our building, but that's much flatter than what the existing slope out there is right now. And as far as the stormwater, we have all the modern BPMs or best management practices from basically we have a treatment train which starts with snouts in the catch basins to vortex units that will clean out that water even further mechanically with floatables and particulates in the water. And then what we further do is we put that water in these underground galleries, and then here we have an actual open air pond to cool that water down, to get it to the cooler temperature before it actually gets filtered through the groundwater and then comes into the wetland system that way. And purposely, we actually try to mimic the amount of where we try to always show reduction because your regulations in the town always want us to have a reduction. But in this case, we tried to keep that reduction within the 10% range. The only time that we went above that was at the 2-year storm, and that's because we don't want to starve the wetland from water, okay? So even though we want to be compliant with the state regulations and the town regulations, but we also want to be able to supply the clean, cooled water to this wetland, because if we just said, okay, we're gonna try to isolate our system here and just hold all the storm water on our property, that would actually be an adverse impact to the wetland because we'd be starving it from water, right? So this wetland right here is being fed from the adjacent areas, and like I said, if it wasn't for a lot of the impervious surfaces that are around here, this wetland probably wouldn't be here today. It'd probably just be a wooded area, a dry wooded area.
And the other thing I would add to that, Commissioner, that Manny has mentioned is just the plan that we have, the invasive species management plan. So we're also, one of the nice things about getting these properties under approvals is that you get the most up-to-date, most current plans with regards, and you have approvals conditioned on these plans that, so now we have a plan here to go in, remove the invasives that are affecting this wetland, and add a significant amount, again, I think it's over an acre of wetland enhancing shrubs, wildlife enhancing shrubs, to try to, right now that's not regulated and there's nothing happening there. But with this, if this were to be approved with this plan, we have an action plan here to really enhance this wetlands.
Joe, do you want to go first? Okay, so I have a question on this pond that you're showing us here in
The retention pond?
the retention pond?
Yep. So there's an existing, I'm sorry, I'm going to answer his question because There's an existing one here. Right, that's existing. That's the current one for the office park. Right, for the office park. We then have a underground storage system here, and then we have a new retention pond here. And that's just for this, the parking lot in this area here. It's a small area that we're picking up with that here.
All right, so in other words, you're saying, again, just want to make sure I'm clear, that the water is going to go into this retention pond.
This one
And-
here, right?
Okay, the one
Yep.
in the north corner. Okay, and then it's going to cool off,
Right.
and then it's going to go into the wetlands.
Via infiltration through the actual pond's bottom.
Okay.
Right.
So,
So the retention ponds, they're designed up to the 100-year storm to fill up and hold that water there, right? And then as the ground starts absorbing that water, it filters through and then goes into the groundwater and then into the wetland system.
okay. So I know this is kind of in our merry-go-round tonight,
Yep.
but who's going to maintain it? And also, too, the water going to the retention pond. I mean, is somebody going to go in there and check for garbage? And from, again, we were talking about public, again, I know we're inland wetlands, but just from, again, I don't want to put my name to something that somebody's going to go in there and drown.
Right.
No one's gonna do that.
So the retention pond itself has got a fence around it,
Okay.
so that no one can go in it.
What happens when it fills up?
What's that?
What happens when it fills up and it rains?
When it fills up? Well, it's gonna need a 7-inch rainstorm in 24 hours to fill it up. So that's quite a rainstorm, because we have to design to the 100-year storm. So what happens is it fills up and then it's designed to, within 72 hours, to empty out again. And how it empties out is through infiltration, right?
Right.
So it goes through the groundwater into the ground and then out, that way. And as far as the maintenance, there's right here in the upper corner of an SP2 that we have actually no, where's the maintenance? Down here, I'm sorry, down here, that we inspect all the catch basins and the ponds, and if there's a sediment more than 12 inches, that they're to clean them out. And that inspection happens every year.
Okay, and how about people throwing cigarette butts and garbage?
Well, they'll
and-
have to pick that up every year. Yeah.
Once the ground becomes saturated,
Right.
it's gonna rise in the tank, in the retention.
Right. Yep.
Rains a little more,
Right. That's why we have to design these systems for 72 hours, so that, say, and let me tell you, a
Oh, I
100-year rainstorm
understand
is
exactly.
not something that happens. It's a 1% chance every year that it happens, right? So that that's what we have to design to, right? So even if that 1% chance happens, right?
yeah.
What happens is that
It
our
will
things are designed to empty out, meaning that we'll be able to take another 100-year storm within 72 hours.
If it overflows, where does it go? Is there another, area that it's gonna settle in?
For this pond here, it has an overflow, basic concrete level spreader,
Okay,
so that when it does start to overflow,
Right.
the water spread out such a way that it doesn't erode the bank. The
Okay.
water's coming out slow enough over that concrete level
Yeah.
spreader that it doesn't create an erosion, and then it goes into the wetland that way, right? Over land, like it has to go
yeah.
through grass,
Right.
landscaped areas before it gets into there. As far as the gallery system then overflows into the existing retention pond, and then from there it would have to overflow into that, out of that retention pond. So again, there's a kind of a train, or kind of a,
And I imagine a property manager was going to see things that would clean them on a daily basis if they had to. You're going to be maintaining the grounds.
correct.
They're not going to just let garbage pile up. They're gonna-
Right, no one would want to live there, right? I mean, they would complain.
No, right.
So, but as far as the maintenance agreements, we file this on the land records, and then the town could come after, could say, hey, you're not doing what you have to do. They could issue cease and desist, they could issue fines, and, that's why that's why we usually don't have an issue with that. They have a property manager that's part of their contract, they take care of it.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'm going to ask for a motion to table till next month. Make a motion to table?
Motion to table.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's not pertinent to the motion, but did we visit this site last year? Was this the one we visited?
It wasn't last year. I want to say it was a couple of years ago.
2022 we visited? Okay.
Here's the copy. Yep. I didn't know you guys had a full
Yeah.
commission again.
It was a while ago.
It's pretty, it's hard, I haven't seen that in a long time. That's all. It's impressive.
Does anyone feel they need like a few-minute recess? Kelly's taking a couple-minute recess. Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Attorney
Commissioners.
Russo, very good.
Appreciate it.
You guys want a break before you listen to my nonsense? Try not to take too long.
All right, we're reconvened 8:33. Next application, clear cutting without an upland review area without a benefit of a valid permit, 500 Peters Lane. Okay, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, we were commanded to come here this evening and face the music, and the superintendent said to me that if we did not appear, then she would issue an arrest warrant and handcuff me, and I couldn't make any comments to the press on the way out or make derogatory remarks to the public about XY, that her aunt's uncles were Democrats or Republicans, but we're here tonight to face the music, and hopefully we can make it easy on everybody. Nicholas Owen, for the record, 972 East Broadway, Stratford, Connecticut. Yeah, that's the way I did that. Look, you're holding me back from watching MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News trying to figure out who's lying and who's telling the truth. But anyway, I'm here on behalf of Stratford Properties, Inc. I have with me tonight one of the managing members, Mr. Peter Prezioso. Mr. Prezioso never worked in this town before. However, he's been a builder since 1985 and has built many towns in Easton Fairfield, Shelton, Trumbull, and now he is embarked on a 5-lot situation in Stratford, a number of lots on Peters Lane, and a number of lots on James Farm Road. The wetlands involved in his purchase are the ones on Peters Lane. And for whatever reason that I couldn't determine, he could not determine why we did not get a copy of the wetlands permit, and that is the truth. That's not an imagined truth, that's the real truth. So what he did is, based on the fact that in all of the other towns that he has worked in, whenever it came to a wetland situation, number one, a permit never had to be transferred. That permit ran with the property, not with the individual, as is indicated in this town, that in order to, if you buy a piece of property, it has wetlands on it, whoever got the wetlands permit and sold the property had to transfer the permit to their company, their name. Now, I do have with me tonight a check in the amount of $300 and the appropriate paperwork. Oh, boy. All right, we'll wait. You sure? The appropriate paperwork and the appropriate signatures, and if the superintendent, Kelly, has any other information that she requires, we're more than happy to supply it to her. But here is the paperwork and a check for $300 to transfer the permit from the current permittee to Peter Prizzio's company, Stratford Properties. What had happened next, as because he never had to do this in any other town, he figured Stratford was similar. He went ahead and cut trees without permission. Unfortunately, he cut down some town trees. So we are here tonight, and to plead with the commission is allow the cease and desist order to be lifted so he can continue on with the operation. However, we have indicated to Kelly that within the next couple of weeks, we have hired an engineer to formulate a restoration plan. And quite frankly, Kelly was kind enough to meet us out on the property, and I think it was a week ago. She was there, I was there, Mr. Prizzio was there, a couple of neighbors were there, and the engineer was there. So we are going to formulate a plan, and I want to submit it to her for her review to see if it's sufficient in order to bring back this restoration plan to your commission next month. The problem basically started, as I indicated, that he did not realize that the wetlands permit had to be transmitted to his party, to his company, or that he needed permission to cut down trees, mostly on his property. In the meantime, when Kelly was out there, the superintendent was out there looking around, there is silt fence surrounding the properties. I don't recall if, Kelly, you can indicate to me whether it was sufficient for what they've done out there, or you would require more, in which, if you do, we are more than happy to do that. Toot sweet, immediately. And a tracking pad was installed so there'd be no soiling Peters Lane at the intersection there. The erosion and controls were put in place. As again, if she needs more hay bales, staking, fencing, swaddling, is that what you called it? Swaddles?
Waddles.
Swaddles?
Waddles.
Waddles will do all the waddling that she wants, and we can get it done. So we'd appreciate your indulgence on this, and we will restore at the appropriate time whatever street trees need to be restored once that project gets underway. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry? Well, I could be wrong unless I heard Kelly wrong. I'm going to let her tell you what she said was cut and what they were.
Of the town trees?
Yes.
So within the town right-of-way, trees were cut in addition to on the private property. And by my count, I can't remember off the top of my head, I'm off by one. It's either 163 or 164. Because, just because, it does sound like a lot, but I do want to caveat that with the fact that many of these are sapling-sized trees, which doesn't make them any less of a tree, but they are smaller trees.
That is what she indicated to me. Now, I know that sounds like, whoa, what did you do? But what we did is obviously we cleared the lot in order to start constructing the house. So a lot of those trees were coming down anyway. But I wanted her to specify to you guys, because if I said most of the trees that are counted were this big, you'd look at me like I was, you know, dreaming. Oh, the baby trees, yeah, the poor babies. So we will replace whatever is required to replace. We will appear before your commission with that plan next month.
It was a variety of tree species. I can get you the list if you would like. Okay.
Again, we'll replace whatever in kind. There you go, thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, sir, Joe.
I'm just curious, what was the, the size of the land area size that was affected in the upland review area?
I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head what the review area was, but we are outside of wetlands and we are outside of the review area. This had a previous approval from your commission.
Because I see on the violation, on this violation, it says clear cutting within an upland review area without the
we're not in the
benefit of
upland review
a valley permit.
The upland review area is 250 feet, so most of that entire project was within the upland review area of wetlands.
Then I stand corrected.
Yeah.
So was it like an acre? Was it, you know,
This is, one of the lots is a very oversized lot because of the topography and the wetlands, so it is an oversized area.
of what size? Like,
They're probably like an acre, acre and a half apiece,
I
right?
see.
Yeah.
Some,
Each lot, I think, is an acre.
yeah.
They're over an acre.
Yeah.
and I'm just wondering, sir, were you ever cited for any such violations before?
No.
So you were completely unaware?
Yes.
Mr. Prizio is new to Stratford. Thank you.
So what are we looking to do here tonight? What do you want us, what are you asking for?
To release the cease and desist and transfer the bond. Yeah, that would constitute the permit. I'm sorry, the permit. Yeah, there's no bond on this.
All right, so you submitted the payment,
I did.
yeah, so I'm going to ask for a motion to release the cease and desist.
I'd like to make a motion to cancel the cease and desist.
Okay, second? Second by Dr. Chess, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I guess maybe a second motion, if it's required, the town attorney can tell you to transfer the permit from the original owner to the new owner.
I usually handle that administratively, so
She'll handle it
unless the
administratively.
commission wants to opine on it,
Thank you.
that's fine.
And, Madam, if there's anything else required, let me know.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. I have not actually inspected the sedimentation and erosion control, so we should do a site inspection together on that and make sure that's all shored up.
All right, but I wasn't out of line by saying that it was there.
It was there, not the first time I went out there, but
But
the
the
second
second time,
time it
right.
was out there.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening, and I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yes.
gentlemen.
Excuse me? No.
His father and myself grew up together in Bridgeport on the corner of North and Parrot Avenue selling fruits and vegetables. That's how far back we go. Yeah, I know. Here I am. Have a good evening, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, staff report.
I just have a quick question for Pat. Do we have to, being that that permit will be transferred, do we have any follow-up on the JRB side of that violation?
Good night, Daniel. Thank you.
Yes, the one that you had mentioned earlier, yes. I'm just not sure, because I did order them to appear as well, since they were the permit holder, which they obviously have not appeared, but I'm not sure how that works because they're transferring the permit.
Were they required to be here?
I ordered them to be here in the cease and desist. But I just don't know if it's kind of a moot point because the permit's being transferred.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just move ahead with it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you.
So, let me, because, who is this that owned this?
That's Gus Curcio,
Okay.
JRB Holding.
Okay.
I don't know what
I
the
just wanna
JRB
make sure.
stands for. At least I believe that's, or one of his,
One of his many?
yeah, I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Administrative permit.
Okay. We have a lot of them. We have 2024-2 AM, which is a garage addition and a driveway, and was modified to include an in-ground pool addition. 2024-3A, conversion of a single-car garage to a two-car garage at 1356 Elm Street. And then, my apologies, the last one was 200 Judith Terrace. I forgot to mention the address. Application 2024-4A, a deck addition at 5053 Main Street. 2024-5A, installation of a swimming pool at 155 Petbridge Circle. 2024-6A, a two-story home addition at 200 Clover Street. And then I did list the cease and desist orders that I have issued, and I have not yet issued a cease and desist for 400 Keating Drive. If you're on the Merritt Parkway heading southbound from the Sikorsky area, you can see the violation off the side of the highway, which is how I found it, but there's a very large pile of fill encroaching into Freeman Brook for that one, so.
Right where that is, I know, right
Yes,
exactly.
you can see it right from the highway still, so if you would like to have a look. But haven't issued any cease and desist yet. I'm still trying to talk with the property owner and get a handle on what's going on out there.
Where's the property owner?
I'm not, off the top of my head, I cannot remember the property owner name. It's not a very common name.
Okay,
That's all I have.
okay. Commissioners Forum?
Ed,
Yes, sir.
sorry, just a question about the cease and desist that we just covered. Did we impose a fine?
No, and you could have.
Okay.
The commission always has the ability to impose
Okay.
a fine.
Oh,
And I
well.
believe we learned that that's a maximum of $1,000 per day. So,
Well, I guess, I imagine Mr. Prezioso was under the impression it was transferred, but it wasn't, and I guess no one told him, or I don't know.
even if it was transferred, he still didn't follow any of the terms and conditions of the permit, so.
So we
Is-
gave him a break tonight.
Some of the utilities companies have a policy, a slogan, that says, "Call before you dig." Is there some way to get people that have property in upland review areas, in these sensitive areas, to be reminded to call before you cut? Because some of the removal of some of these very old trees and in certain species of trees is irreparable, even if they plant new saplings now. I mean,
Yeah, according to the terms of their permit, they were supposed to notify us, they were supposed to post a performance bond, notify us that they wanted to begin work, provide their full construction documents and sequencing plan for review. They didn't do any of that. So regardless of whether the permit was transferred or not, they didn't follow any of that. So, yeah. But technically, he didn't do I know your analogy, they didn't do any digging per se, that would have triggered anything like that, but, yeah. And the only reason we found out about this is because there's a neighbor across the street that notified me. Otherwise, it's on Peters Lane by Roosevelt Forest, and it's not an area that's really highly trafficked, so.
Is there something that we can do to prevent this from happening in the future?
I'm not sure.
Any ideas?
It's really whether someone, like, if I happen to be traveling and I see something, or if a resident reports something. Otherwise, we don't always know.
And it's after the damage is done, unfortunately, and it's
But that's where, yeah, that is where the commission can impose fines, and that can perhaps wake people up that these regulations are important and meaningful.
Yeah, word of mouth might be the best way to get it out.
It is still after the fact, correct?
And typically, if somebody's doing something that they should or should not be doing, a lot of times you're only going to hear it from the neighbor on either side of you that's questioning it. 9 times out of 10, you don't know what they're doing.
And it's, you know, it's, I don't know, it's pretty lame if somebody comes in and they just say, plead ignorance. I don't know, you know, and then they walk off. It's,
No, he doesn't have a building permit. Even if he applied for one, I wouldn't sign off on it because there's a standard term and condition of every single permit that this commission approves, that a performance bond needs to be posted, construction documents and sequencing plan need to be submitted for review before I can even approve, because there's a step for inland wetlands on every building permit, just in case someone doesn't know that they need to go through inland wetlands. And per the terms of those permits, I cannot approve my step until they've done those 3 tasks.
So if he were to have applied and there was some sort of documentation, this is what you need to have in advance. You can't clear any shrubbery, trees, or something that would kind of be acceptable
Right.
for him.
But being that he is a builder, wetlands exist in every municipality in the state. So, yeah, I don't know.
All right, well,
I have a
yeah, Dr. Chess, go ahead.
It's getting late, huh? So is it too late to impose any fine on them? Because, again, it truly is egregious.
I agree. I don't know if it's too late, if a cease and desist order has been lifted. I don't see why not. The violation still occurred. I'm not sure.
I think it would be vindictive if we do that now after the fact that we lifted. We should have told them tonight. I guess you're coming back next month.
I think that's right. I guess I would, when they come back next month, I would make sure that we button up what they're going to get, you know, permission to do, or how they're going to remediate, so that, I mean, I think you.
We removed the cease and desist, but we didn't.
Right.
We didn't.
Right,
put it in.
you haven't yet approved their.
Right.
I mean, what it is a remediation plan. So they moved if they removed, they basically were saying, we hired an expert, he's gonna come in and tell us what we need to do to repair that. So if they removed 163 trees, they ought to either replace or pay for or put some, you know, so I don't know, and I don't think we know, because we don't even have the plan yet of
Right, but the replacement.
where they took the trees and, you know, so.
But you can't replace it. I mean, you can't replace 40, 50 years of growth. So, I mean, that's, you know, so them coming in and putting some samples. So I think to our point, the conversation that was happening is that there needs to be a message that goes out that this is not acceptable. And so, you know, there's a small group of attorneys that represent folks here. And those folks will be telling them, you know, or developers, they'll be saying, hey, listen, wetlands is really serious about this. Don't mess around. And then in terms of actually monitoring it, I mean, you will be able to do that really easily with AI and the satellite photographs that are taken every single day, and you'll be able to zoom in and say there's a patch of growth that's no longer there. So
There is a
meaning
program
there
that,
is.
yeah, there are programs that other municipalities have access to. I haven't inquired if we do or not, but they take regular aerial imagery of town-wide. I don't know if it's month to month or what have you, but it exists already.
So I think I would probably recommend, now that we've lifted the cease and desist, is that you use it as part of the remediation that they're going to come in next month and they're going to say, here's what we're proposing to do. And so I would, rather than say like, well, you have to pay this fine for this day or whatever, is to say, we want to make sure that what you're remediating, what you're going to do, whether it's money or trees or whatever, is that's all included in the package that you approve next month after you see what they're proposing to do. So if it's a little light, then, you know, make sure that it addresses the issue, and I think that actually will get out as well.
And we mentioned next month that
Yes, yes, we could. That's probably just as good as finding them.
No, I think we're gonna find them.
Calling it a different name.
I mean, they left, we lifted the cease and desist. I
That's
don't
fine, that's a
think it'd be fair
separate
to
thing.
to find them if they're
Well,
not here. It's-
How many town trees were cut, though?
It's either 163 or 164, I can't remember off the top of my head.
That's the number of town trees?
Yeah.
Well, I think, if you remember, this is one of those global settlement cases. So that Peters Lane property backs up just, so 795 James Farms Road is over here, 500 Peters Lane is over here. We've now picked up 15 acres of town, so I think it's a little bit different than normally a town tree along a road is
Oh, no, these are just along the road.
just along the road. Interesting.
Yeah, but there are some some of them are younger trees, but they still do have value. I've been in consult with Deep Forestry, and they've supplied me with their spreadsheet for calculating value, and they've indicated that even a sapling could be worth $3,000 or more, depending on species.
Well, in a sense, that's a fine, because, again, like you said, the restoration's gonna cost them quite a bit.
yeah.
Right,
Trees
and
are
that
not-
would.
Trees are not cheap.
And so those trees are under jurisdiction of the tree warden.
Right.
So there is a separate violation route going through
Yeah.
the tree warden as well. So, and I can report back on that.
The other, it was just a few months back that we had the gentleman cutting without a permit that we didn't levy a fine against.
That was on James Farm Road, Willie McAllister's.
Was that James Farm?
Yeah.
There was no
Willie
restoration, though, there, right? Those were on,
There was some restoration proposed in his
Oh, there was,
new
okay.
development, but he hasn't moved on that, so.
okay. Well, what was our fine on that? Does anybody know?
I
We
think
can
it was
go
like
back.
$500,
So it was nominal.
$500.
It was minimal.
yeah.
So maybe just to be consistent as well, and to be fair, So let's see, like you said, Pat, we'll see next month. Yeah.
Per day. Yeah.
Well, I know a gentleman who did the same thing in Trumbull. And I don't know how long he left it because he was fined $30,000. I don't know what happened with that. I don't.
Can I? No, actually, it's more than that, because if you multiply $3,000 a tree times 163, that's $489,000. I know, but I'm just saying is again, that's still more than 500.
He's not getting away free, is he?
No.
It can equal that, though, because under the tree warden statute, you can be charged civilly for what the tree's worth. So that's like what it's worth to society, but also all the natural resources benefits of the tree. So fines can get up into the millions very easily. Yep.
Oh,
She's the tree warden.
Correct. I'm the deputy tree warden.
Okay.
But I am working with the town attorneys on that separate violation, and I'll report back to this commission when that hasn't been issued or anything yet.
All right.
Kelly, how about on a town website, something like, call before you cut if you have property in a review area, near a wetland. If you're not sure, call before you cut. Put it in a newspaper, put it in on the town website. Get the word out, and then if we do impose a fine, then nobody could say, "Well, I didn't know." You're
Even on the mayor's message every week, once a month, it could go on there.
absolutely.
There's, land
think-
use regs.
I think that is all
That's a
you
good
can
idea.
do, is try to educate the public better,
Yeah,
right?
because a lot
That's
of
all you
times
can
they
do.
don't know. I mean,
Right,
obviously
they
they
wouldn't
don't.
know. They wouldn't be really thoughtful of it.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, all the years I've been on this commission, there's been several homeowners that cut trees down they shouldn't have.
Yeah,
They didn't know.
yeah, they just don't.
They weren't fined, but
Right,
some of them didn't even restore them, but some did.
right.
Yeah, at this point, I know a good amount of the tree companies, and most of them do call, even if their client doesn't call, they normally call. But this was conducted differently. At Peters Lane, it was more of a forestry operation, so they didn't use an arborist, like a property that I would know. But we do have access to update the town website, and that there's many pages that need to be updated under my purview. That's an easy one to add. So thank you.
Okay, I'll ask for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Very good meeting.